We live in a complex world that is constantly changing, adapting. It is a world constructed of relationships and information, a world of movement and patterns. It has always been this way. But we also live in a world of increasing speed, a world where a vast amount of information is widely accessible with the push of a button. Wikipedia has 25.2 million articles, with over 22,000 articles added every day. More than 4 billion hours of video are watched on YouTube each month, with 72 hours of video being uploaded every minute. We can visit distant lands, not in a matter of months, but in a matter of hours. Video conferencing is progressively allowing us to connect with others in ways that allow for instantaneous decision making. And in a culture that continues to believe time equals money, the pressure to act swiftly is immense. This is a world both new and strange, a world very unlike that of a century or two ago. Think of a time you had a problem you couldn't at first solve, a nagging conundrum that you couldn't untangle, couldn't make sense of. Maybe you felt you had lost your way or sense of self. We are asked to make decisions every day of our lives, decisions that impact us, decisions that impact people we know and people we may never meet. It would be so simple if our choices and their potential outcomes were clear. Then decisions would be no harder than a multiple choice question with a giant pick-me sign around the answer. But this isn't how our world works. The pick-me signs of life don't actually exist. Every choice sets us down a different path, and the sheer number of possibilities itself can be daunting. How are we to make sense of our lives and make sound decisions when faced with ambiguity? How are we to lead ourselves out of the dark moments when we find ourselves without direction? What can we do when we come face to face with our fears? When this happens, and all we have dreaded comes upon us, the urge to act can be great. When we see our fears materialize before our eyes, or when we feel we are lost, it can be hard not to attempt a quick fix. Pain and discomfort are rarely feelings we enjoy. They can be paralyzing. And when we feel paralyzed, stuck in our predicament, it is not unreasonable to yearn to hear an answer to the question most in our minds: what do I do? When the answer doesn't find us in our time of need, we may wish to retreat to safety. But can we ever remove the pain or discomfort of our lives? If we choose to ignore it, appealing though that option may be, does it not still exist within us? Instead, now that we've covered it from view, we've given it a chance to slowly build up inside of us until we can ignore it no longer. Though I do not claim to know the universal human condition, this has been my experience. Problems I have closed the door upon often wind up barging their way back into my life, angrier than before and demanding that I pay them some attention. So how can we allow ourselves to be wholly in the moment and begin to see and feel our world and its complexities in a new way? Of course, it is still easy to become frustrated when the answer doesn't present itself immediately. In the hustle and bustle of our world, the question that seems to get asked most often is what's next? Critical questions that receive less attention abound. What do I think of this? What do I find meaningful? What scares me? Who am I, and how do I see myself in relation to others? These are all important questions for us to answer. But it's impossible to hear our voice if we're constantly competing with the noise of our external world.
So often in our busy, blaring world, we are confronted with a plethora of messages about what reflection looks like. These have come to us from scholars, popular culture, stories, music, family, friends, and so much more. These external forces have created stereotypes which, for many centuries in some cases, have been defining characteristics about what it means to reflect. The first and foremost stereotype handed down over the centuries is that reflection is a solitary feat. We are often sent the message that we must go off alone and seek silence so that we may best hear our own thoughts, ask ourselves questions, and ponder about our actions, feelings, and concerns. It is in this solitary atmosphere that the thinker resides, alone on his lonely rock. In these solitary places, there are no interruptions, There is no technology, and there is no person or thing to snap us back from ourselves and inhibit the reflective process. We are accountable to only ourselves. Yet, according to Dawn, no man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Considering his words, is reflection truly a solitary practice? Simply put, maybe there is a difference between reflecting for oneself and reflecting by oneself. The next stereotype is that in order to self-reflect, one should return to nature. One must learn to walk away from the synthetic, plugged-in life of the modern world that so often bogs us down, and return to what is natural and good. From ancient scholars to romantic poets and transcendentalists, the belief has been perpetuated that it is in nature where we become self-reliant and able to focus upon ourselves. Even the Latin word homo from homo erectus means of the earth or earthling. We are of the earth, and in order to become truly reflective, we must return to whence we came, find meaning in the natural world, and ultimately build our connections from our roots in this environment. Is leaving our world and going into nature the only way to reflect meaningfully? Other stereotypes surrounding reflection are ingrained in practices about how people are able to reflect. If a person isn't sure on where to start reflection or how to engage in the process, a simple Google search teaches us that it is possible to reflect in 5 simple steps. It also demonstrates how we can easily develop reflective practices as an integral part of our human existence, use it to set ourselves up for success, and pass it on to the people around ourselves. Is there truly value in these so-called reflective practices if people are merely following the steps laid down to them, rather than finding ways to make them their own? Another stereotype about reflection is that people must actively set time aside for reflection throughout their busy lives. The message seems to say that unless we create time to reflect, then we may not be actively reflecting. While to an extent this may be true for some people, this may not be true for all people.
What does taking time to reflect look like? What does it consist of? Some would say taking time to reflect is listening to music. That one song, that one note, a certain set of lyrics all have the ability to make us reflect. What are you reflecting on when you hear this? Or this.
Oh, friend, why are you so shy? Ain't like you to hold back or hide from the light. I hate to turn up out of the blue uninvited, but I couldn't stay away, I couldn't fight it. I had hoped you'd see my face and that you'd be reminded that for me it isn't over. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. I wish nothing but the best of you too. Don't forget me, I think I'll remember you say sometimes it lasts and loves, but sometimes it hurts instead. Sometimes it lasts and loves, but sometimes it hurts instead.
Some would say taking time to reflect is going on a walk and noticing what is around you. Or perhaps it comes from a friend or professor posing a question like, "Who are you? What do you want to get out of life? What is your philosophy?" Or from a single quote, "Without reflection, we go blindly on our way, creating more unintended consequences and failing to achieve anything useful." Margaret J. Wheatley. All these aspects of reflection have something in common. They all allow us to think. Reflection is thinking about one's interactions, feelings, surroundings, and life. Taking the time to reflect is about processing those things that happen to us on a daily basis. Does this mean we will find the answers to the questions posed, or solutions to interactions that we have during the day? No. It just means we are taking the time to think and process and figure out what those things mean for us. So what does reflection look like? It is up to you. There is no correct way to take time to reflect. Each person has their own way of reflecting, from listening to music, taking a walk, going on a run, to reading a book, talking with friends, or just sitting. What is important is that we are allowing ourselves to think.
It's impossible to hear our voice if we're constantly competing with the noise of our external world.
Imagine, what would it look like if we all took a moment to pause, a moment to unplug, a moment to reflect? What things would we begin to see? What new information could we create in this space? Information is the lifeblood of our world. New information is what we use along with information of the past to make sense of our lives. And as people in the world who at times find ourselves stuck, we have a tool readily within our grasp to begin moving us forward. Note here that it is only by pausing, foregoing our deep desire to act, that we leave the dark places of our life. Reflection is what allows us to chart our course and set sail, better able to face our often tumultuous world with surer footing and a stronger sense of self.